Hey there, thanks for downloading this workout pack. My name is Alexander and today I will be teaching you something about form. Originally I'm a psychologist, but the last few years I've dedicated myself to be an artist. On the one hand making art, but on the other hand also teaching art. And I do this from a perspective that I want to share my view upon becoming an artist with the rest of the world. You know, my years as a beginning artist were pretty hard. I was struggling not only with the technical skills, but also with the concept of being an artist and how do you learn those technical skills? How do you go a step beyond what is difficult or what is easy? And how do you stay away from the stuff that is freakingly impossible to do? The reason I'm talking about these small steps is because I think that becoming an artist is just a skill that you need to develop. When I was beginning, I was prone to step outside my comfort zone, but I would step so far out my comfort zone that I would step into my panic zone, and I wasn't even aware of it. At that time, drawing was not so fun. I would actually sit behind my table and I would force myself to draw, but I was actually struggling because I wasn't able to visualize what I had in my imagination. Now the reason is that you see these masters make amazing art pieces and you want to be able to draw just like them. At least I wanted to be able to draw just like them. But you need to understand that something that looks easy probably is freaking hard to make, and it takes years to understand how to visualize or draw that way. Instead of jumping into your panic zone and feeling resistant in drawing, I would say try to do small steps. And that's exactly how I designed this workout video. We're going to do steps, and each exercise is going to be a little bit more challenging than the exercise before. We can relate it to doing a literal workout like running or pulling up. You know, if you want to be able to do a pull-up, you first need to have strong biceps, you need to have a strong back and a strong core. It's exactly the same if we look at form. If you want to be able to draw with form, you need to know how to draw boxes. But to know how to draw boxes, you need to know how to draw planes. Now, all of these subjects are intertwined and layered within this workout video, and we're going to take them step by step. Now, you might have ended up buying this video, seeing it on Gumroad, or you might have seen this video. In this video, I explain a little bit about how form works. So if you haven't seen that video, I would say first check that one out. It's about 10 minutes or so, and it gives you a better understanding of how a great artist like Katsuya Terada applies form into his drawings. Although the focus of this video is form, I do want to check with you if you have some knowledge of perspective. Now, perspective and form are different subjects, but they are intertwined. Form is about the object that we talk about, and perspective is the context in which these objects live. Having a rough understanding on how perspective works, that will help you in doing the exercise in this video. If not, then head over to my Gumroad video and check out this video that explains perspective. Now, the whole design goal of this video is that we're going to be doing exercises together. In a bit, I'll share my screen and we'll set a timer in which we're going to be doing a very specific exercise. You can watch over my shoulder and literally see what I am doing. Now, if you need more time to finish a certain exercise, take it. That's totally fine. So grab your sketchbook, get a ballpoint pen, and let's start. All right, so the first exercise that we're going to be doing is just a quick warm up to get our muscles going and to get the creative juices flowing. For this warm up exercise, we're also going to prepare a little bit for the next exercise in which we're going to draw a box. And to draw a box, we need to be able to draw a plane. And I want you guys to draw a plane like I'm doing over here. So we're drawing a plane, but while we're drawing the plane, we're really trying to slow down and visualize the line that we're going to draw. You know, instead of drawing these kinds of lines or that are a bit wobbly, we really try to, visualize it ghost and then put it down. The technique I talk about in earlier videos is ghosting, in which you put down dots and then you visualize going through the dots. So not from dot to dot, no, going through the dots. And the reason is because when you're drawing lines like this, they're really confident. So when you have confident lines, you have confident planes. And when you have confident planes, you have confident boxes. Now the next step is when you have this plane, we're going to add a cross section in the middle to really emphasize the middle section. And if you want, you can even go further and add another middle section. But in the end, this is just a warm-up exercise, so our goal is to get warmed up. Now I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes, so be sure to draw along and fill up this page with beautiful planes. Let's go. Alright, now one thing that I want to point out here is that you might see a certain flow, right? There's already a sort of form being created by the planes, how I place them. If you didn't do that, that's perfectly fine because we're doing a warm-up exercise. But I do want to highlight something on this. Each plane that I'm drawing here is following certain rules. So these lines are all moving towards a certain vanishing point, right? And this one as well. Now by doing that, by following the same rules with each plane, I'm actually creating a sort of perspective grid. So for example, this line shouldn't go like this. No, it should go like this, right? It should follow the grid lines, move towards a certain perspective or vanishing point. Now, as I've also mentioned in the intro and in the YouTube movie, perspective and form are somewhat correlated. And this is really perspective. But it's also useful to get an understanding of how perspective works to enhance your form thinking. And this is also something that we're going to be using in the next exercise with boxes. So if you want to be able to draw correct boxes, you really need to think about the vanishing point. So for example, if we have this first plane and we draw our second plane, then this line that we're drawing over here needs to follow the same rules as these two lines. So they're meeting somewhere here just above the S. So I'm thinking this is the line. And that's the same with these lines. They're somewhere merging over there. So we need to think about this line is going somewhere like this. And this line, that's converging to somewhere below. Now there's a rule of thumb you can use to think on where do my lines converge to, is that the plane you're looking at, so for example plane number 1 here, means that all the red lines, these, are all converging at the opposite side of the plane. So with number 2, all the green lines, which are on the other side of the plane, are all converging to the same vanishing point. Now if that doesn't happen, then you'll get a box that looks a bit like this, right? We have a starting plane, so in this case number 1. Now we need to think about the other lines, so they are all converging to the same point, but let's not converge this one, and the rest, let's make them converge. We have a wonky looking box. So you can check yourself or be mindful of that while you're drawing these boxes, that all the lines are converging to a certain vanishing point. Just try to build up your boxes with adding more planes, and then we're going to fill out this page with boxes. And we're going to do that within 5 minutes. So let's get going. So now that we've covered boxes, you're a great step forward, because being able to draw a box is the first step in being able to draw with form. Honestly, it's the most important skill you'll need, because if you can draw a box, it gives you an understanding of the space you need to draw any object. Now, if you want to go a little bit deeper into understanding how to draw a box, I would say head over to the website drawbox.com, which contains tons of exercises that you can do to really enhance your skill of drawing boxes. It even has a challenge, 250 box challenge, that I highly advise, of course. But let's take this exercise a step further and let's draw cylinders. So to draw a cylinder, we start with a box. And in this case, we're not only going to draw the outside of the box, but we're also going to draw the inside of the box, and that means this plane. Now that we have the framework of the box, we can start in adding the cylinder. Now, to draw a cylinder, it has two ends that are not planes, but that are circles. And to find where these circles are in this place, right? If we do it freehand, which is something I truly endorse, but I have to show you the mechanics, is to find the middle section, then follow these lines that are going towards a vanishing point, hit that middle section, do it over here, and then here, oh, sorry, a bit more tilted. Then here we have the sides or planes where it touches. These are the places where the circle touches. And what you can already see is that these two and these two, so A and B, are pretty close related, which means that we get a circle that looks a bit like this. Right? But instead of drawing these circles like this, try to hover over it and again use the ghosting method, right? Visualize the circle before drawing it. And then you end up with this. Now we do that with the second plane as well, right? We add the lines. And then we find the sections where it touches, and then we draw out the circle. Now, one thing you can already see is that this circle is really squished together, and this circle is more rounded, right? Remember when I was talking about boxes, so you start with plane number 1 and then these pink lines are receding to the same vanishing point, right? There's another rule of thumb that you can use while drawing cylinders, is that if you draw first circle, which is this one, and you draw it, then you know that the second circle that you're going to be drawing is somewhere around here. And it's going to be less squashed together. So it's going to be more rounded, right? Now, to find where it is, we have to look for the minor axis, which is this line. Now, the minor axis, which has the word axis in it, actually represents the section or the point on where the cylinder goes around it. It's a bit like the same as what the Earth has. It has an axis which is a little bit tilted and the whole Earth goes around it. So we imagine this minor axis, we go all the way over here, and that middle point, well, you can place a circle anywhere on that. You can also do it over here. And the further away you go from that circle, the more rounded and might even get squished like this. It becomes elongated from this way and it becomes elongated in this way. So it kind of like a ball jumping, it goes from elongated one side to the other side and very slowly. And that's because these lines are going towards a certain vanishing point. So that is a quick cheat that you can use to draw cylinders. Let's do that for 5 minutes and fill this page using that quick sheet.
In this lesson, we're really approaching this whole drawing on a bit of a mechanical, from a bit of a mechanical perspective. But I do want to emphasize again that drawing is a balance between intuition and technique. You do have to understand these rules that I just explained here, but you have to understand them and then try to apply them. And it takes years and years and years of really to develop this understanding. I don't know how many cylinders I've drawn, and still it's the most difficult form out there. But it's a really important form, because if we can draw a cylinder like this, then we can draw a bone like this. And actually, while I'm drawing this bone, I'm really thinking about, it is a cylinder, and what are these forms doing? How is this bone, this part protruding from the other part? So it's really about getting an understanding and doing this a bunch of times to feel more confident, because that's what we're looking for as artists, to feel more confident in our lines and in our explanation of visuals.
Now you might be wondering, why are we talking about all these technicalities, right? When I'm talking about the box, I'm showing you the vanishing points. When I'm drawing a cylinder, I'm talking about the minor axes. And you might be wondering, why? I just want to draw this stuff. The reason is that you're in a transition probably from an audience to an artist. And an audience is never concerned with the technicalities. But an artist needs to understand the technicalities to create something. Let's take a singer, for example. A singer is very concerned with their breath work. They're very concerned with how they use their diaphragm or how they warm up their throat before they go on stage to create a beautiful voice. But you as an audience are listening to a beautiful voice and you're just thinking, this person can sing. But that singer or artist is actually applying skills to very specific things to eventually create something beautiful. Now the same applies to visual arts. You're just learning a language and you need to understand these small things. These are the grammar and spelling of the visual arts language. And specifically within form, you need to understand what a minor axis is and what perspective is and how it applies your objects. Now the best way to develop develop your skill into this grammar and spelling that I was talking about is to just practice it a lot. You'll just have to draw tons of boxes and tons of cylinders, and if you do that for a long period of time, you'll eventually feel more confident in it. The easiest way is to just pick a moment in the day and do 5 to 10 boxes per day, and after 3 months, I assure you that you'll feel more confident. But instead of me drawing tens of hours here and showing you how to draw boxes and cylinders, I want to do different exercises with you. And I also want to step away from the technicalities and I want to go back to the audience. How does the audience perceive? When do they recognize something? Well, the most common thing that an audience needs to recognize something is the silhouette. If I show you these images, you'll probably instantly have an idea of what it is. You don't need to look at it for a long time. You're like, pop, 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 that's that, that's that, that's that. Well, the concept of a silhouette or a contour line, which is the line around the silhouette, can be used in form. And that is exactly what we're going to be looking at now. Now, in our earlier exercise with drawing boxes, we started with drawing planes. So we started with a plane. We visualized these lines going towards a vanishing point, and then here we have a plane. So we have plane number 1. And then we added a second plane, which is here on the side, and here we have our second plane, number 2. And then eventually we added our third plane. Now, you might have also seen me draw boxes in a different way, which is like this. I'm actually doing exactly the same, but there's one thing that is different. Because in this exercise, let's call it A, we are thinking about 2 dimensions, right? This is Z and this is X. And then in the second step, we think about the third dimension, which is Y, in this case going down. Right, you remember math in high school, you think about the X and the Y. Now, Z is this one. That's why I'm talking about 3 dimensions. Now, in this case, the first 3 lines that I'm putting down are these 3 dimensions. So I think I started with this one, which is Z, then I added Y, and then I added X. This has a preference, drawing these kinds of boxes. And the reason is twofold. First of all, you have to draw fewer lines. So, there's less stuff on the paper. And the second reason why it's interesting is because for your audience, it's more interesting to look at this box than it is to look at this box. And that's because in this box, they have more space to use their imagination. Because only if I use this line to edit, everybody can see that it's a box, right? And it's pointing towards us. And by not drawing these spaces in or these lines over here like this, I'm giving the audience room to imagine those lines over there. That would be a next step for you as an artist to really think about what lines am I using into my artwork and are they adding value to my art piece, right? You don't have to draw all the lines in there to communicate something. Sometimes you can just leave sentences open. And that's also something you use in communication, right? Because people who talk all the time are very interesting, but sometimes you're just like, shut the fuck up. And that's exactly what this box is. You're just being quiet for certain times, and that makes it more interesting, more mysterious, you could even say. But this is a really challenging exercise because you actually have to see this box and really imagine where the lines are going to before you draw them. But we are going to challenge ourselves. If you are struggling, I would really say slow down. Really try to visualize where are these lines going through and then put the line down. But only do it when you feel confident about where it is going, what the angle of the line is. Let's put a timer and let's challenge ourselves.
if you're feeling like you're struggling right now, then
Take a step back and look at your boxes and try to see what's going on. Really try to slow down. We're not doing a race here. We're really trying to develop a skill that is so freaking difficult. So take your time to understand what's going on. Now in this exercise, I'm kind of over-challenging myself by checking how is this box acting in the background, behind this other box. And here I'm leaving some space open. And these are also things that we'll go into a little bit, but you can also see me making mistakes, right? I want you to be aware that these mistakes are just very minimal. When you do them in a drawing, don't stress out. These are mistakes that are necessary, and the audience is less concerned with them than you as an artist are. Now, thinking in 3D is very useful for drawing boxes, but after this workout, we don't want to be able to only draw boxes. We want to be able to draw more forms, a variety of forms. And that is exactly what we're going to be looking at in the next exercise. Now, just like I mentioned in our earlier exercise, being able to draw a box gives you a great indication of drawing different forms. Let me show you how you can use a box to give you an indication of drawing other forms like a pyramid or an orb. Here we have a box, check in the box, and to draw a pyramid you have to think about the middle section. So again, we use the ghost plane technique that we used in our very first exercise, and you have to visualize this cross, which is this middle section, which can also be found by taking a line from the middle and then going up and then aiming for the middle section, and that's where you'll find to have the top of the pyramid. If you want to have the top somewhere else than in the middle, if you want to have it here, be my guest. You're more than welcome to change the angle of the top of the pyramid. But I want you to be able to do that consciously instead of ending up with a pyramid that is not in the top. So really try to aim for that middle. Put a dot down, really like this with the ghosting method. Be sure that you know where you're going at, and then you draw in the pyramid. Now, for the orb, it's going to be on the one hand a little bit easier and on the one hand a little bit difficult. Now, let me start with the difficult point. An orb in a box has to be touching these sides. So here in the middle, here in the middle, and here in the middle. But drawing it is a lot easier because you just have to slow down. Make sure that that orb or circle is working. And you draw it in. Instead of measuring everything, right, because we're not drawing a box before we're drawing the orb, that would be a little bit silly. We're just slowing down and drawing in the orb. And while we are drawing, we're making sure that it's more round. And people don't care about these lines. Actually, they like it because you as an artist show them how you're developing this orb or circle or whatever it is. There's one difference between the box, the pyramid, and the orb. And that are the interior lines, because these lines I talked about earlier are interior lines, right? The outer lines are the silhouette, and these are the interior lines. Now, and like over here, a pyramid also has interior lines, and they can actually help, right? While you are drawing a box or pyramid or whatever like angular object it is, you're drawing the box, you can still use this small line to give you a guidance of where the whole box is going towards. So it's a great way of guiding you. But you can't do that with an orb, because an orb doesn't have interior lines, right? We can draw over the lines like this, but those are contour lines, and we're talking about that later. Now, the challenge for this exercise is going to be to fill this whole page with all these different forms. So pyramids, boxes, and orbs. And we're going to take 10 minutes for that, because we're also going to use that in an exercise later. Now, one of the things that I would like to ask you to do in this one is to try to vary the objects a little bit. And you can vary the objects on different ways. You can, of course, change them in angle. So right, you can draw a box like this, and then draw one like this, and then like this. Well, there's different ways of drawing a box, but also in the size they have. So for example, you could start with a very big circle over here, and then draw a very small box over here. So try to create some variety, not only in the different objects that you're drawing, but also in how they are related to each other. Now I'm gonna set a timer for 10 minutes, and we're going to fill this page. Let's go. Really try to be aware of how much pressure you're putting on the paper, or digitally of course, to draw the line, because here you can see I'm drawing through the form of the orb, but I'm really using really thin lines to describe to help. Now we've lightly touched upon the concept of interior lines, and we know that interior lines means the difference between a shape and a form. A shape, very flat, it doesn't contain any form, it can be very clear like a silhouette, but overall it's very unclear on what the volume is or what the form is or how the object is feeling, right? An interior line can be used to create form. For example, here we have a hexagon and here we have a box. But there's another way of adding form to your objects, and that's by using cross contour lines. Now, if we look at this object, for example, the pink lines are the interior lines and the yellow lines are the cross contour lines. Now let's do a short exercise to really understand how they work. Alright, so we're already familiar with these three objects and we're going to be slicing them to get an even better understanding of how they work. Now, slicing works by first finding the cross contour lines, and the cross contour lines are these. So they really go around the object, right? If you have to go through the objects, it's like this. Now for the pyramid, let's also use straight lines. So we have a line going like this, right? In the middle, goes all the way around and comes up again. Now here it's a bit different because it's like this. And last, this one. The orb is very difficult because it doesn't have any interior lines that showcase us how to think. But remember the minor axis that we talked about earlier. So let's draw in a minor axis that is like this. And this really gives us an indication of how to think in terms of adding these cross contour lines, because now we really have to go around like this. Opa. And we have and another one bites the dust. Again, right, you just like we did with these lines, you can also imagine them going through the object. Can we go down a little bit? And this is really cool to see, because what's happening over here is that, you know, we see 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, but this cross contour line is also becoming a contour line over here. Here on the back we can still see that there are more lines that we can add to our orb. Now the reason I want to show you this is because this is actually what foreshortening is. You might think that all the cross contour lines are overlapping over here and that we see them, all of them, but everything that recedes into the distance is becoming more and more packed together. So all of the other cross contour lines are really going over this area over here. Now you can forget about foreshortening for now, because that's something that I will cover in a later video. Let's go a step back, because we've drawn the cross contour lines. Now how can we challenge ourselves a little bit more? Now let's see if we can use these cross contour lines to draw the objects as if they were cut up by a knife. Let's start with this first box and do this first outer one. So we have it like this. Three more, so now for the sake of this exercise, I really have to move this piece, this slice, a little bit more to the south to make room for this one. So the space that I'm moving it here, also I'm moving it over here, so it goes like this. And last but not least, the thinner one.
Alright, now let's do the same for the pyramid. Now let's start with the middle section because that's easiest. So here I'm drawing the slices, and here we draw the interior line, and here we have another interior line, and this one is straight, so like this. Now I start with this part. Let's draw the other slice next to it before we finish up the other one. So moving a step to the right and up, moving a step to the right and up, somewhere around here. Well, we have to follow this angle like this. And we have to follow this angle like this. There we have it. Now we can draw the background. And we do the other side. Alright, now we get to the most difficult one. So again, you know, for easy sake, let's draw this minor axes because that's so freaking important. Before I start drawing, I really measure, right? Because I want to see how long is this distance compared to this distance, how big is this, you know. I really try to measure, but it's almost, it seems like it's a bit more over here. So A is smaller than B. So what we do is here, here in the middle. Right, then we go a little bit down, we draw the same circle. Now we have to, this is a really small space. Measure here, because again this distance is here. So alright, and on to the next one. So again, let's keep the same space that we're using here. We're doing that here. We put a mark down. Seems to be the same distance as here. So, hoppa. We have this circle going like this. And we show it on the back because we can look through it. Same thing. So, you know, you really have to imagine that this shape is of course going round. Now, something over here that's happening is really difficult because it's going like this and it's going like this. So it's meeting. So don't draw like this. You know, it's not meeting over here. It's really meeting behind the object, like over here is where they probably would converge those lines. Alright, and last. Now this one seems to be a bit shorter than this one. Here, this is also the widest part of the orb. So here again, you know, it's moving like this. It's meaning the same thing that's happening over here is happening over here as well. So it's really getting close. one thing I forgot is this bottom line is also going around like this. And let's make it really dark so we can accentuate that that is behind the other one. Now, and here we again have this orb going around. Now here between, in the background, this part is the same opening as here, but it's a bit smaller because it's further away, so we can keep that space open, make it dark. And here we have a lot of overlap. And last, like this. This will be just going through all the way. So I'm not really being perfect here, but I'm just showing that there's some opening which shows that we're slicing, and I'm making it dark to really enhance that effect of depth, right? Because higher contrast creates the illusion of depth. So we've created here slices of the orb. Now this is a really difficult one, so don't feel bad if you're struggling with this one, you know, again, just do it a couple of times and you'll get there.
Now you can use cross contour lines to shade your objects, but you can also do it with line width. Now this is the box that we've been using this entire workout, so let's use it for explaining shading as well. Now first of all, we can see that there is a difference in the width of the lines. So this line is very thin, you know, we have this line, and then the outer lines are like this. But we can make it even extremer by going thicker, or even really thick if we want, or even really thick if you want. But that's up to you, you know, that's your decision as an artist. So let's see how that works if we copy this layer and move it over here. Now the first step we have to take is to determine the light source, because otherwise we can't determine what lines need to be thicker or thinner. So let's draw a sun over here, a happy sun, because he's happy. And then we need to think about where are the lines and how thick are they. So this line, for example, that's catching a lot of light, so it's not that thick. But this line is already going into the shade, so here we can add a bit of thickness to it. And the same is for this line. But this line is really in the shading, so we make it even thicker or darker than the other two lines. Now, what happens instantly is that this box actually feels heavier than this box does. And that's only because we've just enhanced the thickness of the lines in the darker areas. Now, a next step that we can do is copy it again, move it over here. And now we can add cross contours if we want. Now, the cross contours are literally the lines that we draw. So we imagine this line, this terminator line over here, right? Because this plane, let's say plane number 1 is catching light, but this plane is really in the dark. So we draw lines, we slow down, we make sure that they are nicely packed together because they're really enhancing the feeling of a shade. Now over here, this plane, let's say the third plane, is also in shade, but a little bit less. So, and another thing that I imagine is that these light rays are going over here, they're bouncing up, and they're also, you know, illuminating this bottom part. So what I really want to enhance is that this part is in light, and here it's less. So just doing this, you know, and this I want to make it even a little bit thicker to really enhance that corner. And here we have a box that is shaded with just using lines. Let's apply this technique to our earlier exercise in which we expanded our visual library with pyramids and orbs. Currently, all the contour lines are about the same width, but we're going to change that to create more depth and shading. Start with adding a smiley somewhere on a piece of paper which represents the light source. Now that you know what the light source is, you can start with adding in the shading. Start with the outlines, so really enhance the thickness of the lines that are in the dark. Be bold here, because we're experimenting, so try to go above and beyond. Once you've added darker lines to the silhouette, then we can move over to the cross contour lines. First, start with the boxes. These are the easiest ones. Determine what planes are in the light and what are in the dark, and then add the cross contour lines. Once you're done with all the boxes, then you head over to the pyramids. And once you've done all the pyramids, then you head over to the orbs. These are most difficult, so really slow down. Start with imagining where the minor axis is and then add your cross contour lines in the opposite direction. As you can see, each exercise was a little bit more challenging than the exercise before. And that way we stepped outside of our comfort zone but stayed away from our panic zone. You might have felt that you have touched upon the rims of the panic zone, or maybe even gone into the panic zone, but don't worry about it. This is learning. You have to feel a little bit of struggle, and that's how it works. You actually have to experiment when you are feeling panic, or when you are struggling, and when you are challenging yourself. It's very important that you really feel it into your body. Like, when am I really stressing out? I have to take a step back and draw boxes again instead of focusing on cylinders. And this is just a process that you'll learn over time. Another thing that might actually help is time. So if you are struggling, just lay down the exercises for now, and come back in a day or two and then do it again. And you'll see that it'll go a lot easier than you initially expect. The reason is that how we learn is a process by something we do during the day, and then during our sleep we actually save our stuff. You have to clean your head, it needs to get high wired into your subconscious, and then the next day you can challenge yourself a little bit more. Becoming a great artist is not by over challenging yourself, it's by really taking small steps but doing it consistently. Now, to just get a recap of what we did in this video, we started with drawing planes by warming up, ghosting, and then we used those planes to actually draw boxes. To challenge ourselves, we went from boxes to cylinders. Now then we stepped away from the technicalities and we looked at drawing boxes from a more simple or more audience perspective. How are the contour lines working? How is the silhouette? So we did the 3D thinking and the audience can look at the contour. Then we used that method of focusing on the silhouette to draw other forms like pyramids and orbs. Then we sliced those objects by focusing on the cross contour lines. And we used the cross contour lines and line weight to add shading to our objects. Up until now, we've learned drawing forms by focusing on simple forms like boxes and pyramids, but there's another way of learning how to draw with form, and that's by studying a complex object. A human figure is freakingly hard, so we're not going to do that in a beginner's course. We might pick that up in a later course. But a complicated object that we can use to study is a percolator. So before I want to let you guys go, we're going to do one more exercise. And that exercise is studying this percolator using the techniques that we just went through in the earlier exercises. Now you can use this image of the percolator to draw this, but if you have a percolator at home or a different object you want to draw, that's totally fine. Drawing from real life is always better than drawing from a screen. Now the first step might be a little bit unusual, but the first step really is to determine where you're going to draw the whole object. So make sure you draw a box which contains the whole object, and this includes the handheld. Don't start off with a square box, but start off with a box that's a little bit more elongated or a little bit more rectangular like. Make sure you mark where the percolator will be and where the handheld will be. Although you might think that these lines aren't cool to look at, they give you a very great indication. They really help you as an artist, and I've noticed that audience also really like looking at these perspective lines because they give you an insight in how the artist thinks. Now, as you can see, I'm constantly jumping up and down through the whole box because I want to know what are the measurements, where is everything placed, how is it working in relation to each other. I'm not focusing on one part, I'm focusing on the whole size of the object. And here I'm starting really with the silhouette of the object. Although I'm sketching in some lines, which is the middle section, the circle of the middle section, I do focus on the silhouette because, those planes that are darker or lighter, or the knot, which is an air ventilation, that's not important. Really start by focusing on the silhouette. And you can also see that I'm using very thin lines. And most lines I'll leave them in the drawing because, again, this is what the audience likes to see. They want to see how you build the drawing. When you're working traditionally, working with a pencil or a ballpoint pen will have the same effect. You can really make thin lines and suggest some things. Except when you're working with an ink pen, then you're challenging yourself because those marks are very visible even at the end. So you could guess that when you're starting out, don't work with a difficult tool. Make it easy for yourself. Work with a pencil or with a ballpoint pen. Now that I feel confident about the sketch slides, I want to go a step further. So now I really go in with a thicker brush and I put down stronger lines. Now that we have the full object, we can go and really make it pop by adding some shading. Make sure you determine the angle of the light so you can make it easy for yourself while you're doing the shading. Now, as you can see, I've chosen horizontal cross contour lines. And the reason is that these horizontal lines accentuate the effect of different planes. And it's also easier because you have to draw shorter lines. To finish it off, I add some marks here and there, and I add a thick shadow underneath. And there we have a drawing of a percolator, but it also brings us to the end of this video. Now I hope you like doing these exercises and you learned something on how you can apply form to your drawings. At least I enjoyed making these videos, and I want to thank Paulina for doing the editing of this video because that's a ton of work. The last thing I want to say is that if you downloaded this workout pack, I assume you really want to become an artist. One thing that I want to say is don't give up. You know, being an artist, you're actually choosing a pretty hard life because you have to develop a skill, you know, you have to put time and effort into something that might not work out because, you know, you probably have some other job or other thing that is on your path and you earn your money with. And it's hard stepping into a new world, right? You have to develop a skill, you have to get to know people, but just keep going at it because it'll make you happy. And if you are happy, then you'll share that creativity and positivity with the rest of the world. And I honestly believe that's in the end why we're here. Now the way to do that is by doing exercises and training your fundamentals. This video was totally focused on giving you an idea of the different exercises there are. But if you're looking for a little bit more personal guidance and a little bit more mentoring, then I would say head over to my website because I do coaching from time to time. I actually have a couple of students right now. The way it works is they send me some art pieces or drawings they did and I check them. I make a personal video of 40 minutes in which I critique their work and give them very specific exercises on how to move on. Now these exercises are not only related on drawing, but they're also related on your personal development because again, I believe that being an artist means not focusing on the technicals. Of course, you need to be skilled in visualizing your imagination, but you also need to have imagination. And to have imagination, you need to feel happy and confident. But if you don't have the resources to do that, then don't feel bad because I will keep creating Gumroad videos. Be sure to actually give it a review on Gumroad. That really helps and endorses my production and sharing of videos. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Stay drawing, keep going at being an artist, and have a nice day. Adios!